My name is Helen Herring, and I'm 31 years old. If you ask my family, they'd say I'm 31 years behind schedule. The words still rang in my ears, sharp and humiliating. That rusty Honda is embarrassing our family. Marcus, my older brother, had shouted it across the parking lot of Riverside Country Club as if he wanted the whole city to hear. He didn't care about discretion. Marcus never did. I froze beside my silver 2014 Honda Civic, clutching the keys tighter in my palm. Rusty. It wasn't rusty. I'd cared for it meticulously, regular washes, timely oil changes, always parked under shade whenever possible. It wasn't flashy, sure, but it ran perfectly. Reliable, quiet, practical. But in the country club's lot where gleaming BMWs, polished Mercedes, and roaring Porsches glittered under the lamps, my Honda looked like an intruder. Marcus, the car runs fine, I said softly, trying to keep my voice even. That's not the point. His face flushed red, not from shame, but from anger that I made him look bad. Do you see what everyone else drives? Do you understand that people judge our entire family based on appearances? Beside him, my sister Victoria adjusted her diamond bracelet with practiced elegance. She leaned against her spotless white Range Rover, her lips curving in disdain. Helen, you're 31. Don't you think it's time you drove something that reflects your status? I swallowed. What status? Marcus laughed sharp and bitter. She works at some little nonprofit, 35 grand a year. That's what barely above entry level. At her age, I was already driving a Porsche and living in a penthouse downtown. His words cut deep, not because they were true, but because I'd heard them so many times before. Every family gathering ended this way, judgment dressed as advice, cruelty cloaked as concern. I looked at them both, Marcus in his tailored suit and $500 tie, Victoria in her designer heels, and wondered when my siblings had started measuring life in dollar signs instead of meaning. Let me back up, I said in my head though, not aloud. Maybe then you'll understand how we got here. 3 hours earlier, the family dinner at Riverside had already gone off the rails before dessert even hit the table. Dad checked his Rolex when I walked in 20 minutes late because of a project deadline. Helen, you're late. Sorry, Dad, I was finishing a proposal. Another sigh, another interruption. Another chance for Victoria to sneer. Another one of your little computer projects. How are the keyboard lessons going? They laughed. I didn't. I kept my tone calm, though my jaw clenched. I teach comprehensive technology skills to children who don't have access to computers at home. Right. Charity work, Marcus chimed in. He said charity like it was a disease. Mom leaned across the table, lowering her voice as though sharing a secret. Sweetheart, we're just worried. Nonprofits don't pay well. There's no stability, no ownership, no real foundation. They didn't notice me gripping the napkin so tightly my fingers ached. Around us, the elite families of the city carried on their polished conversations. Hendersons, Pattersons, Williamses, all of them basking in the glow of successful children and six-figure deals. And there I was, their daughter, their sister, out of place, wearing a dress that wasn't designer, eating food that tasted of judgment. At one point, Mrs. Henderson strolled by, praising Marcus for his legal brilliance and Victoria for her boutique's success. Then she turned to me with polite curiosity. And Helen, what do you do? I answered simply, I work in educational technology. Her eyes lit up. Oh, with one of the downtown firms. I work independently, with underserved communities. That's wonderful. It's so important to give back. She meant it, I could tell. But as soon as she walked away, my family's faces tightened, with that familiar blend of pity and frustration. You see the problem, Victoria whispered. When successful people ask about your career, you can't even give a real answer. You sound apologetic. I wanted to shout that I wasn't apologetic, that my work mattered more than their shallow status games. But I stayed silent, because what would be the point? They didn't listen. They never did. And so when dinner ended, the interrogation followed us outside into the parking lot where Marcus finally exploded over my Honda. His voice carried across the lot and heads turned. I kept my composure, barely. Marcus, I said, finally glancing at his gleaming red Porsche parked beside my Civic. Why does my car matter so much to you? Because it makes me look bad, he snapped. It makes all of us look bad. You want to live small, fine, but don't drag the Herring name down with you. Victoria snorted in agreement. It's embarrassing, Helen. You look like you're still in college. Don't you want people to take you seriously? I stared at them both, my blood running cold. For years, I had let their words slide off me like rain on stone. But tonight, something cracked. Tonight, their arrogance wasn't just insulting, it was dangerous. Because they had no idea what they were talking about. They thought I was failing. They thought I was broke. They thought I was beneath them. And the best part, I had let them think that. Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. You need to change, Helen. A real career, a real car, a real life. Promise us you'll at least think about it. I tilted my head, studying his face. He believed every word. He truly thought he was saving me from mediocrity. Instead, he was marching himself straight into a revelation that would haunt him forever. Fine, I said quietly. Follow me home. Let's talk about my life. His eyes narrowed suspicious, but he nodded. He wanted the last word, the final lecture. 30 minutes later, headlights burned in my rearview mirror. Marcus's Porsche glued to my bumper as I drove toward Millbrook, my quiet neighborhood that he and Victoria mocked as beneath them. He had no idea that every turn of my wheel was leading him deeper into the truth. As I pulled into my driveway, I felt the weight of years of humiliation pressing down and the delicious promise of what was about to come. Marcus parked behind me, shaking his head at my modest two-story house. His lips curled in disdain. Helen, he called, climbing out this conversation isn't over. I smiled faintly, slipping my keys into my pocket. No, Marcus. It wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Inside the grand dining hall of Riverside Country Club, the air smelled of leather chairs, polished wood, and a subtle arrogance that only money could buy. Chandeliers glowed softly overhead, casting light on carefully curated tables where the city's wealthiest families laughed over wine and steak. And at our family's table, the Herrings were staging their usual play, Marcus and Victoria as the stars, my parents as the directors, and me as the background prop who didn't quite fit the scene. Dad had barely let me sit down before checking his gold Rolex, sighing dramatically. Helen, 20 minutes late. Again. I was finishing a proposal, I explained, sliding into my chair. The deadline. Another one of your computer projects, Victoria interrupted, her voice dripping with mockery. She didn't even look at me, just inspected her manicure as if my words weren't worth her gaze. Tell me, Helen. How many keyboard lessons does it take before your students learn the alphabet? Marcus chuckled, swirling his glass of wine. You're 31, Helen. This little charity hobby of yours, when does it end? When do you get serious about life? Their laughter pricked at my skin, but I forced myself to stay calm. Losing my composure would only feed their narrative. I teach technology skills to kids who can't afford computers, I said firmly. It's not charity, it's education. Mom leaned across this table, lowering her voice into that patronizing softness she thought counted as care. Sweetheart, we just worry. Nonprofits, they don't pay. You're not building equity, not owning anything. How will you retire? How will you contribute meaningfully to society? The word meaningfully caught like a thorn, as if what I did had no meaning, as if the laughter of a child learning to code wasn't worth as much as Victoria's boutique receipts. Marcus set his wine down, leaning forward. Let's be honest, Helen. At $35,000 a year, you're barely scraping by. Meanwhile, at your age, I was already billing $400 an hour at Henderson Morrison. Porsche in the garage. Penthouse overlooking downtown. That's real success. And my boutiques generated $1.2 million last year. Victoria added, flashing a smile that could slice glass. I smiled faintly. Congratulations. Truly. It was genuine. Their accomplishments didn't threaten me. What hurt was the way they used them as weapons against me. Mom brightened, sensing a chance to help. Why don't you tell them what you're doing, Helen? I opened my mouth, but the words tangled. What could I say? That my small projects were contracts worth millions, that my charity work funded entire educational systems. Before I could answer, Mrs. Henderson glided over from the next table, her perfume a cloud of lilies and power. She embraced my parents warmly. Robert, Linda, always lovely to see you. And Marcus, congratulations on making senior partner. The mayor was just telling me about your brilliant legal work. Marcus practically glowed. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. It was a complex deal, but I structured it favorably for all parties. And Victoria, darling, I adore your new boutique display. Stunning. Victoria preened. You're too kind. We're expanding into accessories next quarter. Then Mrs. Henderson turned to me, polite curiosity in her eyes. And Helen. Your parents are so proud. What field are you in? The table went silent. Even my father's fork froze halfway to his mouth. I smiled. Educational technology. Her eyebrows rose with genuine interest. Oh, with one of the tech firms downtown. I work independently, mostly with underserved communities. That's wonderful, she said sincerely. It's so important to give back. But as soon as she drifted back to her table, I felt the temperature shift. My family looked at me with that same mix of pity and exasperation, like I had just embarrassed them by not saying something grand enough. Victoria leaned in, her voice sharp. Do you see the problem? Successful people ask about your career, and you can't give a real answer. You sound apologetic. I wasn't apologetic, I said quietly. You said you work independently, Marcus cut in. That's code for unemployed. I'm not unemployed. But you're not really employed either, Dad pressed. Freelance project to project, grant to grant. That's not stability. That's not growth. I inhaled, slowly steadying myself. On the inside, my phone buzzed against my thigh. I slid my hand into my purse, checking it discreetly. One glance at the screen and warmth surged through me. Contract proposal approved. Harvard University. I quickly locked the screen, slipping the phone away before anyone noticed. My heart thudded with the irony they were tearing me apart for lack of stability, while the Ivy League had just agreed to a multi-million-dollar partnership. But I said nothing, not yet. Dad's voice pulled me back. Sweetheart, we just want to help you see reality. You need a plan. Nonprofits aren't careers. They're hobbies with good intentions. I pressed my napkin flat on my lap, listening as Marcus leaned back smug. Exactly. Tell us, Helen, how many people have you employed? How much tax revenue have you generated? What's your economic impact? I opened my mouth, but Dad cut me off again. The point is, we're concerned. We want to see you succeed. Truly succeed. Around us, other tables hummed with talk of acquisitions, developments, investments. Words like assets, portfolios, margins filled the air. At our table, my worth was being measured in cars I didn't drive, homes I didn't own, and wealth I supposedly lacked. By the time dessert arrived, my appetite was gone. My siblings had dismantled my life piece by piece. My car was a reflection of failure. My house was a starter home. My work was admirable but unsustainable. And as we walked back into the cool night air, my mother placed a hand on my arm. Promise us you'll think about making some changes, Helen. Marcus added firmly, get a real job. Buy a decent car. Stop making us look bad. Victoria's final dagger came with a smirk. Something that doesn't make people feel sorry for you. That was when Marcus's voice exploded across the lot, condemning my Honda loud enough for strangers to stare. I clenched my keys so hard they left half-moon indents in my palm. They thought they knew me. They thought I was small. They thought I was a disappointment. I smiled faintly, already hearing the words in my head. If only you knew. The country club's parking lot glowed, under rows of tall lamps, their light glinting off polished chrome and freshly waxed paint. Mercedes SUVs, Jaguar sedans, Porsches lined up like soldiers. And then there was me, Helen Herring, slipping into the driver's seat of my silver Honda Civic. My car didn't shimmer, didn't roar, didn't scream for attention. It just started. Quietly, reliably. But Marcus wasn't done with me, not yet. The roar of his Porsche's engine split the night as he pulled out behind me, headlights glaring into my rearview mirror like judgment made flesh. He was following me home. For 30 minutes, he tailed me through winding roads, his luxury car glued to my bumper as if sheer proximity could pound his opinion into my head. I could almost hear his thoughts. She'll thank me one day. She just doesn't see it yet. I gripped the wheel tighter, the faint hum of my Honda contrasting with the throaty growl of his Porsche behind me. We were two siblings on the same road, yet worlds apart. The further we drove, the more modest the scenery became. The manicured lawns and wrought iron gates gave way to small porches, tidy hedges, middle-class normalcy. This was Millbrook, my neighborhood, the kind Marcus sneered at. I slowed as I turned into my driveway. My house stood waiting 2 stories painted white with blue shutters, a small front porch and a yard I'd planted myself. It wasn't a penthouse or a mansion. It was home, paid for, comfortable, and mine. Marcus pulled in behind me, cutting the Porsche's engine. He climbed out with the brisk determination of a man who had rehearsed his lecture during the entire drive. Helen, he called. Striding up the path, I followed you because we need to finish this conversation. I shut my car door softly, letting the night air cool my face. What conversation? The one about your future, about making better choices. His hand swept toward my house, dismissive. Look at this place. It's fine for a starter home, but you've been here 4 years. When do you plan to upgrade? When do you start building real equity? I own this house outright, Marcus, I said simply. That's not the point. His jaw clenched. The point is growth, progression, moving up in the world. And that car, he stabbed a finger at my Honda parked neatly in the driveway. That car needs to go. I don't care if it runs fine. It makes you look like you're struggling. I tilted my head studying him. He honestly believed success lived in square footage and horsepower. I'm not struggling, I said. Then prove it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Show me one thing in your life that demonstrates success. Just one. A small laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Marcus scowled, mistaking it for defiance. What's so funny? You want proof, I asked softly. Yes, he snapped. Show me. I slipped my hand into my pocket, pulling out my key fob. Fine. With a click, the garage door began to rise. The motor groaned slowly, the metal slats folding upward. Marcus crossed his arms, ready to mock whatever I showed him. But as the light spilled across polished paint, his smirk faltered. Inside the garage, 3 gleaming silhouettes emerged. A midnight blue Lamborghini Huracan Evo, a silver Aston Martin DB11, and a black Ferrari 488 GTB. Their sleek curves shimmered under recessed lighting engines, sleeping but alive with promise. The combined value roughly $750,000. Marcus froze, eyes, widening mouth parting in disbelief. For a moment, the confident attorney, the country club peacock, vanished. He was just my older brother again, speechless, uncomprehending. I stepped into the garage, running my hand lovingly along the Ferrari's smooth surface. Its black paint gleamed like liquid midnight. These are my weekend cars, I said calmly. Marcus let out a strangled laugh. What are you talking about? You have these... His voice cracked like glass. Yes, his eyes darted from the Lamborghini's angular frame to the Aston Martin's elegance. But how you make $35,000 a year? Unless these are rented. No, I turned back to him, my voice steady. I bought them, paid in cash. Marcus staggered a step closer, squinting at the license plates as though proof might be written there. His hands trembled slightly. Helen, this doesn't make sense. You can't... Can't, what I asked, raising a brow. Can't afford this. He gestured wildly. Not with what you do. I leaned against the Ferrari, folding my arms. What exactly is it that you think I do, Marcus? He blinked, thrown off. You run some nonprofit. You teach kids computers. That's all you ever said. I smiled faintly. Is that what I said? Or is that just what you assumed? He faltered. What's the difference? The difference, I said softly, is everything. For years, I'd sat silently while my family dismissed me, while they laughed at my charity work and waved off my projects. I had let them believe the picture they wanted, that I was small, that I was unambitious, that I was beneath them. And now here was Marcus standing in my garage, his confidence crumbling, finally beginning to glimpse the truth. The night was still, the silence broken only by the faint tick of cooling engines and Marcus's uneven breathing. Helen, he whispered, his voice unsteady. What the hell is going on? I pushed off the Ferrari, stepping closer until the reflection of his Porsche glowed faintly in the garage light behind him. You wanted proof, Marcus, I said, meeting his eyes. Here it is. His throat worked as he swallowed hard, struggling to form words. But none came. Marcus stood frozen in the mouth of my garage. His Porsche sat outside, its glossy red paint dulled by comparison to the cars gleaming under my lights. The air between us was thick, his silence louder than all the insults he'd hurled at me earlier. Finally, he croaked, Helen, what is this? How can you possibly? I walked over to the Lamborghini, trailing my hand along its angular edge. The metal was cool beneath my fingertips, sharp like a blade. You said you wanted proof of success. These are mine. The Ferrari, the Aston, the Lamborghini, paid for, maintained, and very much real. Marcus shook his head as though trying to wake himself from a bad dream. But how you make $35,000 a year, that's what you told us. I told you I worked with underprivileged children. I told you I ran nonprofits. You assumed the rest. His brows knitted. You're saying you lied. No, I corrected softly. I just didn't correct you when you dismissed me. His face flushed, anger, confusion, humiliation mixing together. This doesn't add up. Even if you run some nonprofits, they don't make millions. Where did you get the money, Helen? Who's really funding this? I smiled faintly. Me. That single word cracked something in him. He stumbled forward, pointing at the cars. These cost more than everything I own put together. Even with my salary, I couldn't afford this collection. What the hell have you been doing all these years? Instead of answering directly, I motioned for him to follow me. We stepped out of the garage and around the side of the house where a wide window overlooked my home office. Through the glass, the room glowed with blue-white light. Rows of monitors covered the walls. data pulsing across them like veins of electricity. Servers hummed quietly in their racks, the faint vibration audible even from outside. The space looked less like a home office and more like a control room for a corporation. Marcus pressed a hand to the glass, staring, his reflection warped across the monitors, his tailored suit looking small against the wall of technology. This is yours. Yes, but when you were hunched over your laptop at family dinners, you were actually running a company, reviewing contracts, managing projects, sometimes answering government requests. He spun toward me, his voice breaking. Government requests, Helen, what exactly do you do? I met his gaze calm and deliberate. I own a company called Digital Learning Dynamics. We build advanced educational software for schools, corporations, and government agencies. We design adaptive learning platforms, custom training systems, and accessibility programs. His lips parted, his breath catching. How big? Last year, $67 million in revenue. Net profit of $31.8 million. Marcus staggered back like the numbers had physically hit him. He gripped the porch rail, his face pale. 17. Yes, I let the word hang in the night air, and growing. For a long moment, Marcus just stared at me, eyes wide, chest heaving. I could almost hear the gears in his head grinding against every assumption he'd ever made about me. But the night wasn't finished yet. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, the screen glowing with a name, Dr. Sarah Chin, Harvard University. Marcus leaned closer, reading it, disbelief hardening into shock. Excuse me, I said, answering. Hello, Dr. Chin. Her voice was crisp, enthusiastic. Helen, I wanted to give you the good news personally. The university board has approved your proposal. Harvard will be implementing digital learning dynamics across all of our computer science and education programs starting next semester. That's fantastic, I said warmly. What's the contract value? $12.7 million over 4 years with renewal options. This will be the largest educational technology contract in Harvard's history. I'm honored. I'll have my development team begin customization immediately. Excellent. We're thrilled to partner with you. I ended the call and slid the phone back into my pocket. Silence fell again, heavy and absolute. Marcus stood staring at me like I was a stranger. 12 million? With Harvard, Helen, what is happening right now? I leaned against the porch post, letting him see the steady certainty in my face. What's happening is that everything you thought you knew about me was wrong. While you were mocking my Honda, I was signing contracts with Ivy League universities. While you were telling me to get a real job, I was running a company that employs hundreds. While you were measuring success in cars and penthouses, I was building something that actually changes lives. His hand trembled where it gripped the railing. His lips moved soundlessly before he finally whispered, You're not the failure we thought. I tilted my head. No, Marcus, I never was. The weight of those words pressed down on him. He looked at the garage again, the gleaming cars reflected in his eyes. He looked at the office window, the glowing monitors pulsing like a heartbeat. And finally he looked at me, not with scorn, not with superiority, but with something he hadn't shown me in years. Fear. For the first time, my brother realized he didn't know me at all. Helen, he whispered, voice almost breaking. Who are you? I stepped closer, my voice low, steady. I'm your sister, the one you ignored, the one you dismissed, the one who was building an empire in silence while you were chasing applause. His jaw worked, but no sound came. His world had tilted, and he was clinging to the edge. I let the silence linger, savoring the shift in power, because this was only the beginning. Marcus followed me around the side of the house like a man being led to the gallows. His shoulders slumped, his steps heavy, as if each new revelation weighed down his perfect leather shoes. I tapped a key card against a sleek panel, and the door to the smaller building at the back of my property clicked open. Inside, the air was cool and dry, humming faintly with power. Bright LEDs flickered to life, illuminating rows of workstation servers and specialized equipment. Marcus froze on the threshold. What is this? My development facility, I said simply. He stepped inside slowly, his head turning left and right. The room looked like something out of a Silicon Valley campus, not the backyard of a quiet Millbrook home. Monitors displayed streams of code. Testing rigs lined the walls. A glass case displayed sleek devices, prototypes from past projects. This lab cost about $3.8 million to build and equip, I explained. We use it to develop and test our software before deployment. Marcus's mouth opened and closed, no words forming. His gaze landed on a wall filled with framed certificates, patents, and awards. He stepped closer, his hand hovering just shy of the glass. Educational Technology Innovation Award, National Science Foundation Recognition, Department of Education Excellence Medal. His voice cracked soft with disbelief. Helen, these are yours. Yes. His eyes landed on a photo, me shaking hands with the Secretary of Education. He whispered almost to himself, all those years. We thought you were just fiddling with laptops at the kitchen table. I smiled faintly. I wasn't fiddling, Marcus. I was building. He turned to me, his face pale. But why didn't you tell us? Why let us think you were nothing? That question pierced deeper than his insults ever had. I inhaled slowly, memories flooding back. I was 22, fresh out of MIT with a master's degree in computer science. I'd been so proud when the acceptance letter came, full scholarship, research fellowship. I'd run downstairs, waving it like a banner, ready to share the news. But Dad had been too busy bragging about Marcus's first case win. Victoria had been parading a new dress from her boutique. My letter had landed silently on the counter, unnoticed. That night I'd gone to bed, holding it against my chest, whispering, "One day they'll see." Years later, at family dinners, I'd tried to explain what I was working on: adaptive algorithms, scalable platforms, pilot programs in underserved schools. But every time I was interrupted by Marcus boasting about his billable hours, by Victoria describing a new store opening, by Mom asking when I'd get a real job. Eventually, I stopped trying. I let them think what they wanted. It was easier to be invisible. "Why didn't I tell you?" I said now, meeting Marcus's eyes. "Because you never wanted to know. Because you were too busy talking about your Porsche, your penthouse, your boutiques. I learned that no matter what I said, you'd dismiss it. So I stayed quiet. I let you believe I was small." Marcus's face crumpled. "Helen." I turned to a workstation and logged in. The monitors lit up with dashboards, charts, graphs, contracts. Rows of numbers scrolled across the screens. Real-time revenue, user statistics, active clients. Currently 1.3 million students actively using our platforms. 47 states, 18 countries. Daily revenue 290,000. Marcus pressed a hand to the desk, steadying himself. "Per day." "Yes. While you were mocking my Honda at the country club, we earned more than most people make in 5 years." His lips trembled. He looked like he might be sick. I clicked to another tab. "And this," I continued, "is Future Minds Foundation. In the past 5 years, we've donated $18.7 million to educational programs, built 47 computer labs, funded 156 full college scholarships, trained over 800 teachers." Marcus blinked rapidly, tears threatening. 18 million. In charity. Yes, because my business generates enough profit to fund extensive programs and still build personal wealth. I don't have to choose between impact and success. I can do both. He sank onto a rolling chair, staring blankly at the glowing numbers. His confidence, his bravado, it had all evaporated. He looked small. The silence stretched until my phone buzzed again. This time, the notification made my own heart skip Department of Defense. Marcus frowned. Who's that?" I unlocked the screen, holding it where he could see. The subject line glared back at him. "Request to discuss adaptive training proposal. Estimated value 47 million. His face drained of color. The Pentagon. "Yes." I tapped the message open. "They're interested in adapting our educational algorithms for military training. Potential contract 47 million. Marcus pressed both hands to his forehead. His shoulders shook. "Helen, this is insane. You're talking about contracts worth more than I'll see in a lifetime." I studied him quietly, the same way I had studied him when we were children, and he was bragging about his grades while ignoring mine. Except now the tables had turned. "I told you earlier," I said softly. "The difference between what you assume and what's true is everything." Marcus lifted his head, his eyes glassy, his voice breaking. "And all these years Victoria, Mom, Dad, me, we treated you like some kind of charity case." I tilted my head. "Yes. You dismissed me. You ridiculed me. You made me the punchline of your success stories. All while I was building something you couldn't even imagine." He swallowed hard. "And you never corrected us. Why should I validation from you was never my goal. My work speaks for itself. The children we've reached, the lives we've changed, that's real impact. Your approval." I shook my head. Never mattered. Marcus buried his face in his hands. For once, the brother who always had an answer, always had a lecture, had nothing. The lab hummed around us, a cathedral of quiet proof. I let him sit in silence because sometimes silence teaches louder than words. Marcus sat slumped in my development lab's chair, staring at the glowing monitors as if they'd betrayed him. His tie hung loose, his carefully combed hair now mussed from running his hands through it. For years, he had been the brother with all the answers, the model of success. And now he looked like a man who had just realized the foundation of his world was made of sand. Finally, he whispered, "Helen, I owe you the biggest apology of my life." I leaned against the workstation, arms folded. "Yes, you do." He winced at my bluntness, but didn't argue. His eyes flicked toward the wall of awards again, then back to me. "We've been wrong. All of us. About you. About everything. We thought you were wasting your life scraping by. Meanwhile, you were building." He gestured helplessly at the room around us. "This." I didn't soften. "You weren't just wrong, Marcus. You were cruel. Every dinner, every gathering, every time you laughed at my hobby or mocked my house or car. You weren't trying to help me. You were trying to feel bigger by making me smaller." He flinched like the words were blows. I know, Helen, and I can't take it back." Silence stretched between us. The hum of the servers filled it steady and relentless. Finally, Marcus said quietly, "I don't even recognize myself anymore. I thought I had it all: status, money, respect. But sitting here, I feel hollow. You have impact, purpose. I just bill hours." I studied him, surprised at his honesty. Marcus never admitted weakness, but tonight the armor was cracked. "Do you want to know the difference between us?" I asked softly. He nodded, eyes heavy. "You built your life around appearances. Cars, penthouses, country clubs. You crave applause. I built mine around substance. Quiet work. Real change. Impact that doesn't need an audience." His throat bobbed as he swallowed, and it shows. My phone buzzed again, lighting up with messages 3 in a row. Victoria, Mom, Dad. Marcus glanced at the screen, then back at me. "They know I'm here. They're waiting for my report." "What will you tell them?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly, almost ruefully. "That I came here to lecture you, and instead I got schooled." I raised an eyebrow. That's one way to put it. He rubbed his face, groaning. "God, Victoria's going to lose her mind when she finds out. She still thinks you're, well, the same Helen we mocked at dinner." I smirked. "Then next month's gathering will be interesting." Marcus chuckled weakly, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him in years. "You're planning something, aren't you?" "Maybe." I shrugged casually. "Maybe I'll show up in the Lamborghini, just to see everyone's jaws drop." His eyes widened, then he laughed harder, shaking his head. "You'd do it too. You'd actually pull into the country club lot in a Lambo just to watch Dad choke on his scotch." Tempting, I admitted. For a long while, we sat in that lab, the tension slowly shifting into something else. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. Marcus broke the silence again, his voice softer. "Helen, how do we make this right? How do we apologize for years of treating you like you were nothing?" I considered his words carefully. Then I leaned forward, my tone steady. "Start by understanding that success comes in many forms. Stop measuring people by the square footage of their homes or the price tag of their cars. Learn to ask questions instead of making assumptions." He nodded quickly. "Done. Absolutely done." And acknowledge that my work helping children gain access to technology is not just valid, it's vital. His voice cracked. "It is. God, it is. You're changing lives while I win cases that make rich men richer." I let that truth hang between us. My phone buzzed again. Another text this time from Victoria Marcus. "What's taking so long? Did you finish explaining to Helen why she needs to get her life together?" I turned the screen toward Marcus. He groaned loudly, rubbing his temples. "What do I even say to her?" he muttered. "Tell her the truth," I said calmly. "Tell her I'll be happy to discuss my life choices at the next family gathering. And tell her," I smiled, "that I might drive something different to the club next time." Marcus looked at me incredulous. "The Lamborghini." I shrugged. "Or the Ferrari. Depends on my mood." He let out a long laugh, one hand pressed to his forehead, his shoulders shaking. "Helen Herring, you're going to give them all a heart attack." "Good," I said simply. "Maybe then they'll finally stop underestimating me." Marcus sobered, his voice dropping to something raw. "Helen, thank you for not giving up on us even when we gave up on you." I met his eyes steadily. "I didn't do it for you, Marcus. I did it for me, and for the children whose lives depend on the work we do." He nodded, swallowing hard. As we walked back toward the main house, Marcus glanced over at the garage where my supercars gleamed under the lights. His red Porsche sat outside, suddenly reduced to a toy beside them. For the first time, he didn't look proud of it. He looked ashamed. The night air was cool, heavy with unspoken truths. My brother's footsteps dragged beside mine. He was still processing, still unraveling. And I knew this was only the beginning. Next month, the entire Herring family would learn the truth, and they would never look at me the same way again. The night had settled deep over Millbrook, the neighborhood wrapped in the hum of crickets and the faint glow of porch lights. Marcus's Porsche rumbled to life behind me, its proud engine sounding oddly subdued now, like a dog that had lost its bark. He lingered in my driveway longer than expected, one hand gripping the wheel, his gaze fixed on me through the windshield. His eyes no longer held condescension. Instead, they carried something far more foreign, humility. Finally, he rolled down the window. "Helen," his voice cracked with something raw. "Thank you for tonight, for opening my eyes." I studied him quietly. The brother who had spent years tearing me down was now struggling to piece himself back together. "I didn't do it for you," I said softly, "but maybe now you'll start to see people for who they are, not for what they own." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I'll see you at the next gathering." A faint smile tugged at my lips. "Yes, and I'll decide which car to bring later." He chuckled weakly, then pulled away the Porsche's red taillights, shrinking into the distance down Millbrook Drive. Silence reclaimed the night. I turned back to my house, the porch light spilling across the lawn, my modest shutters, my unassuming facade. From the outside, it was just another house in a middle-class neighborhood, but behind its walls lived an empire no one in my family had imagined. Inside, my phone buzzed again. Calls from Victoria, from Mom, from Dad. One after another, their names flashing across the screen. Marcus had clearly told them something. Desperation radiated from every ring. I let them all go to voicemail. Tonight wasn't for them. Tonight was for me. I slipped into the garage and stood before the Ferrari. Its black surface shimmered like midnight glass, its engine waiting like a coiled animal. With a press of the key, it roared awake, the sound reverberating through the garage, shaking the air. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather hugging me like a second skin. For a moment, I just sat there, breathing in the power, the quiet satisfaction. I remembered every insult, every dismissal, Victoria's sneers, Marcus's lectures, Mom's patronizing "sweetheart, we're just concerned," Dad's sighs of disappointment, all of it stacked on me like bricks over the years. And now I had reduced their entire scaffolding of judgment to rubble without raising my voice, without demanding recognition. I had simply opened a door and let the truth shine. I shifted into gear, the Ferrari rolling out of the driveway like a panther released into the night. The neighborhood blurred past the roar of the engine echoing against the modest homes. Windows flickered with light as curtains shifted neighbors, catching a glimpse of a car they never thought they'd see here. The city skyline rose ahead, lit with the glow of office towers and high-rise apartments. Marcus's world, Victoria's world, the world that had dismissed me. I pressed harder on the accelerator, the Ferrari leaping forward, the sound reverberating through the streets like a dehalention. At a stoplight, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face was calm, but my eyes burned with something fierce. For years, I had allowed myself to be invisible. Tonight, I had reminded myself just how powerful invisibility could be. Because when no one sees you coming, they never prepare for the impact. My phone buzzed again in the passenger seat. A voicemail this time, Mom's voice trembling. "Helen, honey, Marcus told us. We need to talk. Please call us back." Then Dad, Helen. "If this is true, if you've built something this big, why didn't you trust us? Why keep us in the dark?" And finally, Victoria, her tone sharp with panic masquerading as control. "Helen, what did you tell Marcus?" "He's overreacting. He always overreacts. Don't let him twist things. Call me back." I let them all sit in the inbox. Tomorrow, maybe. Tonight, I wasn't ready to give them the closure they wanted. Let them stew. Let them realize how little they'd ever really known about me. The light turned green. The Ferrari surged forward, slicing through the night. I thought about what Marcus had asked earlier. "Who are you, Helen?" The answer came to me now clearer than ever. "I am the quiet one you underestimated, the invisible one you mocked, the one who let you laugh because I didn't need your approval to validate my life. I am Helen Herring, and I have built an empire that will outlast every Porsche, every penthouse, every boutique." The city lights streaked past the roar of the engine, harmonizing with the steady beat of my heart. Tomorrow there would be calls, explanations, reckonings. But tonight, the streets belong to me. I rolled the windows down, letting the cool air whip through my hair, and whispered to myself a vow more than a statement. Substance over appearances, always. The Ferrari answered with a growl, carrying me into the dark, my quiet victory echoing louder than any applause my family had ever withheld.